right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Cultivating consciousness with your hostess, me, Kelsey Sweet, here on Cultivating Consciousness on Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Every Wednesday morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. here on Studio A. Yep. Good morning. It is, what is today? July 15th, 2020. And here we are, still stuck on planet Earth, doing well to mind our time, to get through, to evolve our species as a human, right? Not just any human, not your typical human, not your Human type of human. I'm changing up the spelling on you. Your Huemyn kind of a human, right? You're human that is aware of your light body, the conscious light body that knows itself as a spirit walking inside of a meat suit, that kind of a body. So thank you for bearing with me today, this morning, last week, the last couple of weeks. I'm shifting the energy here because I feel the energy in the world is shifting around me. And so as I'm shifting and grounding into myself and nearing my 1-year anniversary here on Revolution Radio, taking into consideration what's new or what could be new or how to approach this platform newly. It's a fun platform. It's a powerful platform. Sometimes it's a little heavier than fun. It's important. It's serious work. I take this very seriously. My approach to channeling in, right? To connecting to source, to finding the right information to open up my throat channel and have conversations with you, the world. In a very direct way, maybe. So as I'm going through this transition phase and seeking out my new intro, seeking out new vibrations, right? How do I put it? I think if you want to elevate yourself and if you want to raise yourself as a human, right, you have to surround yourself with like-minded individuals and like-minded people. I mean, when you begin to make great transformations in life, the world around you changes, right? It's that microcosm to macrocosm effect and that subtle body difference. When you start paying attention, when you start waking yourself up consciously and paying attention to signs, symbols, to the things around you in your environment and attributing meaning to them. Same thing with your dreams. When you can start attributing meaning to these subtle variations in life, there's more room there for growth, for empathy, developing empathy and connecting with other people. Right? So last week was kind of strange. I'm not in the chat room today. I'm having some, I guess it's technical difficulties from the Chatsy side of things, not from my side, not from Revolution Radio, but from the chat room side of things. But I'm not able to get into the chat room this morning. So I don't have live feedback like I did last week. So I'm going to run with that. If you're there and you're listening, I can't read your responses. But I'm here with you. I'm going to pretend like I can read your responses and like I'm involved in posting in the chat room today. Why? I don't know, just for fun. Anyway, so last week I started a women's energy class. I think I've been off as far as show topics and show themes and getting guests going and things like that because COVID is throwing loops into everybody's lives. And so in opening up this space and allowing things to come in divine timing, that divine timing has opened itself up for more space, I suppose, to allow more flexibility and adaptability in approaching this. And I'm definitely giving myself permission in this space to focus on self-care and to get really grounded and to get really clear on who I am as a person, how I'm supposed to show up in the world through this transforming stuff, right? I feel like when it comes to going through big transformations or having to start over, going through these, like, whatever, like, I'm pretty well practiced at that part of it. And so I feel like at this point in time, there's experiences that I have and things that I have to offer that need to be shared. So with this whole women's energy thing, let me backtrack a little bit and talk a little bit about what that is and what I'm going through, because this is week 2 of this women's energy course, and I've been taking it on Mondays in the afternoon. And this Monday, I slept like all day and I rested and I gave myself permission just to rest. Like I had a whole list of things planned to do, but then I didn't have any demands on me for the day from any other people. And so the demand from my body was to rest. And I think part of me is still in that rest mode, right? So I missed the group, right? I missed coming together in the group for that second day. I feel like I was there in a different space, definitely working through my own energy in terms of like sleeping, right? Or just taking the time just to process and allow things to move. So I'm still in that, like, in this space of rest today. I had an extra day just to kind of ground and get clear and submit, I suppose, to the way the world works, or just to submit to the energies and the forces. And I'm getting to this point in my life where in moving forward and opening up, like, the manifestation, right? I'm trying to do something here with my life at this phase, at this point. You know, it's a new phase, it's a new chapter, not just like with COVID, but other things lining up. And so I don't know, it's nice just to show up. And I think within this space, especially today, when I was thinking yesterday and I was consulting with my guides as far as what theme to approach and what topic to approach, I mean, definitely this women's energy thing, and more about myself and who I am and what I do. And I think I imply a lot, or I think that people can see what it is that I see, and I take a lot of, I guess, the knowledge I have for granted. And so this women's energy class that I'm taking, it's through the Reno Psychic Institute. And I've been, I guess, like, satellite affiliated with them for a number of years. I've participated in a couple of psychic fairs over the years, which is how I got, I think, more connected. I like to just show up in the shop every once in a while, find my rocks. I took in, so I have one of my main art projects I've talked about it, I mentioned it before, I have a life-size unicorn, a golden unicorn. And so my unicorn has been commissioned by the Psychic Institute to show up for events and things like that. So in exchange for bringing my unicorn down to events, I get to take some of the classes. So I got to take like the introduction class several months ago, and so now this women's energy class is being offered. I'm taking that one as well. It's through Zoom, so I don't have to leave my house or anything. And I get to be in my own space, and the timing of it's great. I mean, we started it a week late, the week that it was supposed to start. Most of us couldn't show up for that time. And so it started the week after, and I'm happy that I wasn't the only one who wasn't able to start at that time. But again, it's all in perfect timing. It's all in divine timing. And so when it showed up and when it happened, by that time I had managed to put my office and my art studio together in the garage. And so since I've been able to pull those two pieces of my life together and seeing an acceleration in how energies are showing up. And I've been lucky to acquire a new client to come in for art coaching. And I'm hoping I can pull in a couple more. So if you want some creative coaching, if you have creative blocks and you're not sure how to work through them, contact me. You can find me on kelseysweet.com, KELSEYSWEET. You can find me through Facebook Messenger, ksweetsparlormint@gmail.com. You can find me through that one too. I don't check my email every day like I should. But reach out to me. People find me when they're ready and when they're meant to. And so if our paths happen to cross, I'd be more than happy to support you in overcoming creative blocks. I found some really amazing tools over the years to help break through this, to help develop innovative and creative behavior development. And creative blocks can look like anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be related to making an art piece or designing a business plan. It can be a creative block in terms of how do I approach my health during this time? How do I make use of my time now that things have changed? If you feel a shift in there and you're not sure how to show up, you can get into creative thinking, creative expression, that sort of thing. And so women's energy. I'm not sure what was covered this week. I look forward to week 3 and kind of catching up and seeing what I missed out on or what I intuitively have picked up on for this week. The first week was about running energy through the ovaries, right? And connecting to that source and getting more in tune with what feminine energy is and how to use your feminine energy in a positive way. And on one level, it seems kind of like a very basic class, a very broad, generalized class. What I think is happening in allowing myself to really tap into this feminine energy, it's giving me the permission to express myself fully. And that hasn't always been there. There's been a lot of masculine blocks, and the energy that came through for me, and the information that came through for me was toxic masculinity, like pent up on the right ovary side. So this idea of masculinity in life and how these drives, whether you're male or female or anywhere in between, if you're binary or gender specific or not, however you want to identify, right? We can look at the spectrum of sexuality through masculine energy and through feminine energy, and how those energies mix and combine anywhere in between, right? All of that potential exists within each and every one of us. And if you've manifested as one sex in this lifetime, it's not to say in previous lifetimes you haven't been the opposite. So there's a lot of energy that plays in, or I consider how as a, how do I put, as my mom's only child growing up in a single parent home. Though I have like 3 half sisters and 3 stepsisters I've never lived with, like no boys, like there's been like a heavy influence of male energy throughout my life. And I think what happens when you grow up with one parent, whether you're a female living with mom or a male living with mom, or a male living with dad, or like whatever, like you learn that there's not specific roles for men and women. It's not like mom does this, dad does this. It's the parent does all, meaning that the kid also has to learn how to do it all, has to learn how to play both roles. The masculine roles, has to learn how to play the feminine roles. And in our current patriarchy, in our current system, the masculine energies far outweigh the feminine energies. I mean, we just see it in so many different angles. And in trying to discern and trying to come up with the theme or the topics for this one, like male fragility keeps coming to mind, right? Like even just saying that word, like I just feel like men are like going on defense and then that's like, oh, right? Like I'm currently enrolled in a PhD program through the California Institute of Integral Studies in transformative studies. I'm a semester in and on a leave of absence, but it hasn't stopped my research nonetheless. So when it comes to exploring these themes, right? Like the idea of, what is the word? White fragility that was presented to me at the beginning of last fall through one of the books we had to read in one of my courses. We were reading about white fragility. There's so much truth in it. And if you haven't read this book, I can't think of the author off the top of my head. I'm not going to Google it and look it up because it's going to distract me. But through this Black Lives Matter thing, it's really important and really helpful to read through that book and just to understand what white fragility looks like. So we're talking about all people, all races, but we're emphasizing the great divide in respect and freedoms when it comes to races. Races aren't treated equally. They're not given the same due respects by all cultures. It's unfortunate. And underneath that, underneath the color of our skin, there's the layer of male versus female, or the man and woman, So like once we get past the color of our skin, well, now what we're left to deal with, I guess, or now what we're left with here is our sexuality. And when we're talking about the divide between male and female and masculine and feminine power, I mean, it's such a huge divide. So if we take white fragility another layer deeper, and we talk about the white male fragility, especially when we start tiptoeing into these uncharted territories, so to speak, especially as women. And I think it's important as we shift into the new age, into a new feminine era, away from the Piscean masculine I, me, mine mentality as the collective, we shift into the Aquarian collective feminine we mentality as the collective. And so this dynamic is playing out in so many different ways, right? In terms of how we as a species energetically are shifting from our masculine side to our feminine side. You can see it in the transsexuals. I don't know if it's necessarily that there's a rise or a popularity in transgendered, or if it's because there's an access to, or if it's just more widely acceptable for people to be experimenting or to be exploring their sexuality on a much more profound material level, right? Like when it comes to our sexuality and the roles that we play, thanks to modern medicine and sciences, like people can now know what it's like to be or to become or to transition into the opposite sex. Fascinating, absolutely fascinating. Yeah. And I'm of the idea that in this evolution of humanity, as we go from the Homo sapient into the homo-luminous body, this was told to me by my astrologer Timothy Glenn years and years ago during my life's purpose reading, right, where I'm just going to take a deep breath here before I get sidetracked, right? That we as a species, as we're evolving, right, we're evolving from the Homo sapient to the Homo luminous. So there within that spectrum of evolution, there exists the Homo transluminous as well. So for those of you out there who are new to these concepts or these ideas and who are like, what the heck are you talking about, lady, right? Because we're starting to get into these really abstract realms of consciousness and this territory within science that has been relatively underexplored and uncharted. We don't really know what consciousness is or what any of this means. And so when we're talking about the human being and the human species, right, we refer to ourselves or we identify as Homo sapiens. And that sapient being, that sapient form is confined to the material physical world. It's ruled by the laws of the material world, right? The Homo sapient recognizes itself first as, oh, I'm a human being. I have this meat suit. I exist here on this earth in this material realm. Oh, I can create. Oh, I can self-express. Oh, through this awareness of self in this body, I can ascend to spirituality. And lo and behold, we come into this different dynamic or understanding of what consciousness is. From the homo-luminous perspective, the luminous body, we're talking about the light body, the non-solid form, the quantum mechanical aspects where we are not solid, right? We're vibrating particles that are forever moving, that have response capabilities to light and to consciousness. The Homo luminous recognizes itself as the spirit body first. It recognizes itself as the light, as the energy that manifests itself into the material meat suit form. It recognizes that through consciousness, through this understanding and knowingness of spirituality, it can make choices and decisions in the material physical form that can alter and change what it looks like, right? So the implications here are that if I am a Homo sapient and I break my arm, right? Well, depending on what access I have to healthcare, it's really going to determine how well my arm fixes and it gets fixed by somebody else, right? But there's this implication that we need somebody else, a doctor, to come along to reset the bone, to fix it, to mend it, right? And then we have to go through this time where we allow the body to take over. The body heals itself, right? And then we go on forever with this broken bone. So from the luminous perspective, the homo luminous, If the homo-luminous breaks its arm, well, it can consciously communicate with the cells in its body, and through visualization and through the psychokinetic techniques, it can fuse and heal its own bone, right? You don't need the doctor at that point. You don't need months of healing. You need the conscious understanding and the belief systems inherent in the collective in order to sustain that concept and to sustain that idea. And if we are of the mindset and we believe that we are light bodies and we are spirit and we are co-creating this material world that is more like a dream state and not something so solid and unchangeable, something outside of our control, something that we have to submit to, right? We recognize it as something that's an extension of self, an extension of all bodies. And if we can all get on the same page here, right, collectively, consciously, here in this material, physical realm reality, we can achieve new feats, we can achieve new ideas, we can tap into new sources and realms of dimensions of consciousness outside of the one that we know now. We can vibrate higher, we can attune to higher frequencies, right? So that our cells and our bodies are more responsive to these light laws of the light, and not the laws of the physical world. So the homo transluminous is the bridge. It's the being in between, right? It's the one that is between the worlds. It still is conditioned and identifies and is somewhat subconsciously locked into the rules of the material world. Yet it understands on a quantum level that thoughts are things, right? And it understands that, well, consciously, if I'm a light body entering into this meat suit, then I should be able, right, to tap into my light powers and my light sources and self-heal, self-correct, correct others, heal others instantaneously. Some people are very good at doing this. Some people can do this sometimes. Some people have different connections. A good friend of mine is a reflexologist who, like another friend of mine who started studying massage, got into the understanding of, is it a field really, of like psychic surgery, right? And a lot of my research centers and focuses on alternative healers and how alternative healers use consciousness in these other realms and these other energetic matrices to heal people in profound ways, incredibly profound ways. In my own healing journey and in witnessing healing journeys of others, I have seen recoveries happen that are amazing and so impressive, and have witnessed the body shift and move in ways and releases and ahas happen quickly, instantaneously, in these like almost magical, mystical ways. But our Western science doesn't acknowledge that, right? A lot of that stuff is very woo-woo, so to speak. And as a psychologist myself, who has studied psychology for, 15 years now, maybe. I see so many people wasting so much time seeking help, trying to get healed, and reiterating and rehashing and trudging up all these things that perpetuate these cycles, that perpetuate toxicity, It doesn't heal people. It doesn't necessarily help. Not very quickly. There's accelerated ways that we can go through and heal people very quickly. I've witnessed it with a number of healers. Working with different shamanic practitioners, working with Bridget Lynn Dolgoff, who's been involved here in Revolution Radio for a number of years. And going through these sessions with these healers, within one session, you can make leaps and bounds in terms of recovery. Leaps and bounds. I even had the experience too in a Psych K session. Psych K is something really fascinating, right? It's a technique channeled in. That's that was channeled by a man. That uses muscle response testing to access the subconscious to re-encode and like resolve and rewire big issues within the brain, right? But just by accessing the subconscious through the body, through muscle response testing, through muscle dowsing, right? Like the connection between our mind, body, and spirit, between our psyche, our physical form, our physiology, and our spirit. Like these things are so intertwined. But in the realm of health and healing, this very masculine, I don't know that I really even want to call it masculine environment. Things are very compartmentalized, right? Things are very structured and kind of black and white. It's either this or it's that. Things are segregated in so many ways that when it comes to the healing process and the healing practice, same thing. Everything is all in compartments. We go to different professionals for different things, and none of these professionals generally have any correspondence with each other, much less any idea that the other exists or whatever, unless the client in between them is incredibly transparent, But that kind of stuff is incredibly rare. So we teach people to compartmentalize their health and their healing. So it's not a holistic model, right? It's not an integrated model. But when we're talking about health and wellness and holistic approaches to well-being, we're talking about integrating anything and everything, right? Each person is a different case. Each person is going to require something unique in order to heal, right? So what works for one isn't necessarily going to work for another, though we have these baseline approaches of understanding the self, right, and understanding from these different compartments, because not to judge, I think we've needed to compartmentalize aspects of health and aspects of well-being to get a really deep understanding of what each of those pieces is, right? It's like taking a puzzle box and taking out all the pieces and then looking at each individual piece, right? Noticing its shape, right? And then starting to put like pieces together, all the blue sky pieces kind of go in one, and then all the edge pieces, those all kind of go in another, and all the grass pieces, we can section them off. But until we start integrating all of those pieces and laying all of those pieces out and seeing how all those pieces connect together, we're not going to get the whole picture. Women's Energy, week 2. Something to sleep through. So thank you for holding space. I think I want to take a moment and tune in, kind of reground, recenter. Last week when I did this, I had some feedback that was like, you should play some sort of warning that's going to let people know that you're going to put them into a trance state. I wasn't aware necessarily what was happening, but I welcome the feedback. And so if doing a collective breath, right? This time it's a live streamed show feed, so whoever's listening in at this moment and breathing together, right? We're all setting intention and we're all kind of like coming together on an energetic level, right? And kind of like meeting in the same plane, in the same realm. And for me, it's to create a baseline, to create an energetic, even keel, right? So that we're all on the same page, in the same room. Not like chat room, but on like the same energetic plane. So if it puts you in a trance state, to breathe collectively with others, or if you feel like breathing collectively with others puts you into a state of trance, does that trance state open you up to the collective conscious, right? And is that trance state going to deter you or distract you from what's going on, right? Like they say, if you're going to do a meditation, right, and you're listening to something on audio and you're driving a car, probably not the best time to close your eyes and do some deep breathing, right? Because you got to stay really focused on driving the car. But no matter what we're doing, no matter what it is that we're doing, there's always an opportunity to take a mindful moment, right? I've done a couple of these too. To take a moment to be very mindful of yourself, of your feelings, of just what's kind of going on, right? It's a check-in. You hear a little bell go off, ding, 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 mindful moment. Take a deep breath and recenter, recalibrate. Check in with yourself. Mindfulness it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing to teach. It's a fun thing to teach. And it's one of those things that, once I've learned, I said, well, everybody knows what mindfulness is, right? But if we're talking about a mindful breath and 3 mindful breaths together, we'll do one big mindful breath. We'll do a big build up to it and do one big breath together, right? But to be mindful, what is it to be mindful? Is your mind full of stuff, right? It's to be aware and to tap into your senses of what's going on in the here and the now. So if you're eating a grape, or if you're eating a piece of chocolate, right? It's taking a moment, or even if you're taking a breath, right? To pay attention and to focus your attention on the subtle body and on the subtle energy, right? So if you're doing something really important that requires all of your focus, don't pay attention to me right now, unless you can kind of step off to the side and then forget what's in the past, forget what's in the future, and just be, right? Just allow yourself to be in the moment. So if you're drinking your coffee, if you're just sitting there, whatever it is that you're doing before we take this collective breath in, scan your field, scan your energy, just kind of take a mental note of your emotion, what it is that you're feeling, what are you sitting on, the temperature in the room. Is it something soft you're sitting on? Is there something hard you're sitting on? Is there any discomfort in your body, right? Just kind of recognize it, acknowledge it, say hello to it, right? And as we breathe in mindfully together, this is paying attention to where the breath goes in the body and the sensations and the feelings and everything that comes up with it, and placing no judgment on it, allowing it to be what it is and just to feel it and to experience it, right? And so through our mindful breath together, use all of your senses. You have sight. Picture your breath, right? Moving into your body, or even watch your body breathe. You ever look down at your chest when you breathe? See what, just notice with no judgment. What does it sound like when you breathe? Got something in there? Right? Is there a whistle? Right? You never know. Is it just soft? When you breathe and you can actually listen and hear, can you hear the, reverberation going on in your head? Right? Can you hear the sound of the air passing through your throat? Right? Notice where that goes. Sight, touch, sound, right? Notice the taste, if there's a taste. And again, release it with no judgment, but just to check in. So, on our count of 3, we're going to take 1 deep breath in, right? And this is like a slow, mindful breath and a full breath. And if you can, right? It's an in through the nose, very slow in through the nose, and a very slow out through the mouth. Cleansing breath, right? Our breath is meant to move and cleanse, so this is an opportunity with this collective breath for you to tap into the collective. Breathe, get all in the same, whatever. Right? But take a mental note of how you feel right now. And then after you breathe, I'll prompt you again, but notice anything different. Notice how things have shifted. Notice how things have changed. Right? If you're listening to this later, not through the live show, if it's years, months down the road, weeks, whatever it is, and it's not in the time frame where you're breathing collectively here with us at what will have been a previous time, right? I dare you to take the opportunity to dissolve time and to dissolve the barriers of time and to give yourself an opportunity to visualize a time and a space where this breath is all happening together. Notice if there's anything different. So on a 1, 2, and a 3, we're going to breathe in nice and slow through your nose. Hold it in very, very slowly, very mindfully. Just say hello to your body, scan the whole thing, and release that breath. Yeah. I always notice a difference with that. I do this all the time. I do it with groups. I do it with classes. And I've just noticed anytime my anxiety goes up. I had this conversation yesterday with my client, right? About the electromagnetic field of the heart and that anxiety, right? That kind of kicks in. And if you're attuned enough into these subtle energies, right? And you're consciously attuning your electromagnetic field to be in alignment with the physical environment around you, right? We're all energy, we're all electrical impulses. You can, right, from that field, do so much more for your own health and your own wellness and your own well-being, right? It's just a matter of getting there, of waking up to it, of tapping into it. The shift is there. It's always there, right? If you want to release that anxiety, if you want to help to direct that energy that you feel when you begin to wake up and when you begin to become more aware, right? When that overwhelming sensation of knowledge and energy comes in, right? You got to know where to direct all of that. Otherwise, it builds up inside of the body, and then the body responds in various ways. Not always the most positive or healthy ways, right? We have to listen to it, and we have to really, really be very, very aware of that. It's so simple. So simple. This all flies under the umbrella of the placebo effect, right? Like, if we believe it enough, it will work. And I was reading something through the internet, I don't know, a couple of days ago. I don't know exactly what it was. A random article. But what caught my attention was it was talking about, maybe it was on the radio that I heard it. This doesn't really matter too much, but there's a story. I think it was the radio from like one of the Christian or religious radio stations. Every once in a while, I'll stumble into it and listen, right, just to mix it up. There's this woman, or the story about a woman who had cancer, and she just didn't believe that she could get any better. You know, like, she didn't really fight and didn't really try. Like, she just kind of caved into the disease, and it killed her. And then the preacher, whoever this was, had mentioned something about how it is our will and our drive to want to live that can help push us beyond anything. And I've seen it in people with chronic diseases. I've seen people overcome some incredible feats of health, and I've seen people accomplish amazing things when it comes to wellness. But these are people who are incredibly determined, whose will is so strong, right? They fight for their life. They fight consciously for their life. They fight to overcome so many of these constructs that have limited us in collective ways. And how inspiring, right? I think there has to be the want and the will to achieve and to get through it. And for some, maybe the will just isn't strong enough. I don't, because, you know, like I've seen it, people who have chronic diseases who the kindest, greatest, hardest fighters, but their soul contract, whatever it is, they're just not meant to be around. I don't know. Life is funny. Death is funny. You know, the subtle body, the energetic body, the spirit is a funny, funny thing. We give so much credit to the material form. We give so much credit to the meat suit. We give so much value to the material world that, especially in this Western culture, we've bypassed spirituality altogether. And we've limited ourselves as far as what we can achieve as people, because you have a select few who are very programmed by the material world, who want to dominate the material world, who want to suppress the spirit out of others, right? It's a story we see play out time and time and time again. And so we come to this precipice in history where we wonder, as a species, are we going to repeat ourselves? There's a lot of, I think, awareness through this COVID thing to, I don't want to call it to the stupidity or to the lack of intelligence of, but to the sleeping people, to the sheeple, to the unconscious people, the sheeple, the zombies, the robots, right? People who are so afraid to feel, who are so afraid of the feminine side, right? Afraid of judgment, afraid to transform. Fear, fear, fear. Fear is not love, right? Love can do some crazy things. I talk about love a lot, the idea of what love is. Love makes me think of compassion. Compassion makes me think of peace. Be peace, right? Love is not always peaceful. But when there's peace, there's always love, right? But when there's love, love can create division. Love can create divide. Love is a strong, strong emotion that has driven people to do some pretty crazy things throughout the history of time, right? But what we're all striving towards is peace. I don't know, Modest Mouse had it right in their songs of you. If it takes shit to make bliss, then I feel pretty blissfully. And if life's not beautiful without the pain, well, I would just rather never even see beauty again. We've taken a lot for granted as a human species. We've taken a lot for granted. And we're seeing now just the very start of it. Just the very start. Are we seeing people lose connection to what it is that they hold onto materially so strongly? Perhaps this is largely Western culture, but I don't know that it's concern, but my heart is just heavy and it's just anticipating the amount of loss that is upcoming. And already there's been a lot of loss. There's been so many lives lost to COVID, not just to the illness, but to the political and economic factors of it. There's so many young people, my age and younger, who are just knocking themselves off left and right because they don't feel much hope for the future, right? It's homo-luminous or bust. If you go to my Facebook page, you'll see that on my little header, homo-luminous or bust. If you're not ready to evolve as a species, if you're not ready to raise your vibration and raise the collective conscious, I'm afraid you won't make it. You won't make it through the big shift, right? To nobody's fault, to no avail. Everybody's got their karmic path and their karmic cycle. But things are shifting, not just on a political global spectrum. I mean, we're seeing odd shifts and odd, maybe rare alignments within astrology, and like just this timing in so many ways is so unique. There's big things happening, big events happening globally all across the world. There's no doubting that. We've got about a minute or so before we go on break. We'll take a 5-minute break here and we'll come back into our second hour, and I'll keep my channel open and I'll keep allowing this information to process and to come through. Maybe I'll get a little bit more into my projects and the things that I do in the next hour. So if you've got some extra time and you're interested at all and you want to come out and support me in different ways, there's lots of ways that you can. So we'll talk about that in the next hour. What do you think? Sounds all right. Anyway, Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. Welcome, Studio A. It's Wednesday. It's early in the morning. But that's all right. Wednesday, hump day. Oh, support us. We're listener funded, listener supported. There's lots of ways that you can do that. We'll talk about that in the second hour too. But right, you can go to Patreon. We've got links up. You can go to PayPal. You can send us in checks. You can do whatever it is that you need to do to keep us going because, well, I don't know, you help keep me going. I would like to help keep you going and continue this symbiotic relationship. I don't know if you're gaining and learning anything out of it, but I am. I know I've got some really great feedback, so thank you very much, and I'm going to go take a break. There's my cue.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Galactic Interstellar Council on Revolution Radio Studio A, Fridays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Join us as we traverse the starseed paradigm, as expressed in the time-space continuum that we know as the divine expression of love and light. Integrating this conscious unity into the galactic paradigm. So welcome all, both terrestrial beings and galactic beings as one. So be it. You're listening to Revolution Radio. It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
I want to thank everybody for listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, the one place where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
Show them what we got here.
All right. Thanks for listening while we took that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And yeah, we're going to get back to your host.
Welcome back, Revolution Radio, to Cultivating Consciousness. I'm Hostess, Kelsey Sweet. Thank you for joining me. I am super super excited to have this space. And I'm so honored and blessed and lucky to have a radio show space where I get to talk about whatever I want to talk about for 2 hours. And so, getting to hold space for cultivating consciousness gives me this amazing platform where I can connect to all kinds of amazing people and learn so much, and hopefully build bigger connections, greater connections, so that we can all help each other accelerate and grow in life. So a good way that you can help support, right? You can start off by going to Revolution Radio on freedomslips.com and support us. Find a way, right? If you got some extra change laying around and you want to invest it into something that will have a positive energy return, hello, help us here, right? We all do this as volunteers, and we show up because, well, somebody's got to, right? And because we have this platform, this amazing space, and there's so many people who have come before me in this platform to make this available and to make this platform so easy, at least for me as a host, to access. And I really hope that you as a listener feel so inspired, right, that you want to keep this going. This has been happening for over 10 years? Since before I was born. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that young. Or am I? No, I don't know. I'm quite an old soul. I might be older than I think I am. Though I keep having this thought, like, I feel too young to be this old. So it is what it is, right? It's all in divine timing. It's all play. Oh, right. Moving some energy through. Right? And you've caught me on week 2 of Women's Energy. I think it's a 6-week class. So probably for the next 4 weeks or so, we're going to be focused here on women's energy and what's going on in my personal life, right? What's kind of going on in my growth life, and how I think what's going on with me helps to resonate what's going on in the larger world, and hopefully we can have conversations and mutual exchanges, right, as far as like, why is this happening? I don't know, maybe it doesn't matter why. What is happening? I've been talking about the evolution of humanity, right? I mentioned how to be a human, HUEMYN, and if I were in the chat room, if I could get into the chat room today, I would post a link to that class. It's up right now. I still have it up for an artist discount rate of $7.77, or if you're kind and you want to give me the full $37.77 for it, I'd greatly appreciate it. But it's how to be a human, and it's an online self-guided class. It's a foundational course that I've put together in terms of doing work coaching, programming, conditioning stuff with me. But I find myself, I guess, like regurgitating the same information to people through readings and whatnot. And over the last 7-8 years or so that I've been doing intuitive readings for people, I find myself, spitting out some of the same information over and over and over again. So I consolidated it and put it into this online self-guided class for personal social transformation. It's an integral approach, but there's an aspect of education, there's some coaching, there's some counseling in there, but it goes into some basics of art, practice, color theory, chakras, and to like quantum potentials and consciousness. So it's an introduction to a lot of what I do in a very consolidated, confined way. Let's see. Wish I could get into the chat room so I could post it to you. But if you Google how to be a human, HUEMYN, and Coursecraft, it should pop up as an online class. If you go to kelseysweet.com, KELSEYSWEET.com, right? Kind of like that Mickey Mouse thing, KELSEYSWEET. On my homepage, on that front page, there's a link, I believe, to that class as well. So you can find it. I'll post it up on my Facebook today too, just so it's there. As far as lessons go, what are hues, how to perceive hues. We talk about perception, chakras, meditating, how to use color consciously in your life, incorporating hue or color into your health. And there's a blurb there on what it means to be a human, right? There's like extra bonuses in there. There's like recipe that I give you in a meditation and prayer, that kind of fun stuff. So there's a lot of it like jam-packed in. So I think that could be helpful. And it would be helpful for me if you would take it. And then give me feedback. I think there's comment sections in there too. So I've had a number of people sign up. There's a couple of people who've made it through the whole thing already. But I'm curious to know. At some point or another, I might add in a little questionnaire or something, but I'll probably do a second version of this that will be more interactive, or that might have question and answer sort of thing, but who knows. We'll get there when I get there. I got some other things that I have to take care of first, I suppose. But yeah, no, you can totally help me out in that realm. How to be a human. And I hope that will help you as well. It should help you out. I don't know how it couldn't help you. Right? Help you help yourself. That's what I'm here to teach people. Is to help people help themselves and help people learn how to empower and recover themselves. Right? By giving them a plethora of tools for their toolkits. If there's anything that I've learned in my recovery journeys through post-traumatic stress and through, I don't know if I can call it substance stuff, but maybe recovery through substance abuse, maybe. I don't know that I've really ever, so like recovery, right? People are like, where did you recover from? Well, I went through like years of therapy and alternative health stuff to overcome trauma related to sexual assault in various forms, and dealing with that for most of my life in a number of ways, and things just compounding. And so a lot of my work, a lot of my activism work goes into advocating for survivors of sexual assault in its various forms. And it's opened up the window to do more advocacy and work with persons who deal with suicide, whether as survivors, thinkers, or people who, have survived other people who have gone down that journey or chosen that path in life. And so as an artist as well as a psychologist, as an artist, I approach a lot of these really heavy issues through my artwork in its various forms. And so the radio platform comes up as an art form for me, in a way to process and move through a lot of these energies, right? So I think as far as recovery goes, not so much from trauma, not so much from substance, but recovery from dissociation. I think that's the one. To recover the dissociated spirit and to re-embody that spirit into this meat suit, right? When we go through things that are really traumatic, things that are really overwhelming, we check out, right? That spirit that comes in and manifests in that body, it kind of checks out. it decides it wants to stay up in the spirit realm, or it decides to kind of go its own way, or depending on who you are and your connections to the etheric realm, right? You might set your soul energy outside of the body, which then opens up your body as a vessel to other beings, other entities, and other things like that to enter into the meat suit and start driving it around and start steering it around. And even though you might be the bus driver chilling in the back seat, right, you still have somebody else steering your bus. Some passenger just walked on and then decided to take control because you decided not to take the wheel and you're chilling out in the back seat. So, recovery from dissociation, re-embodying into this life form, right? Taking your spirit and reassociating with the body, right? It'll adjust the psychic realm. Pardon me. Shifting and moving some energies again. It's early in my time. It's like 4 a.m. for me. I know I've got the 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. slot. If you look at our Revolution Radio calendar through our website, you'll see that it's all based off East Coast time. We've got hosts on this radio program from all over the world. So when people are showing up, it's all on different times, right? Different time frames, which I think is fascinating in the realm of radio and a global radio, because we can connect beyond time, beyond boundaries, beyond physical boundaries, beyond time and space. It's such an interesting way to connect to people, because as this is being recorded and as this will be played by who knows, wherever, sometime in the future, right? Whatever information is in here, I hope it still rings true and is still valuable and relevant. So, evolution doesn't happen overnight. The evolution of a species doesn't happen overnight. The evolution of humanity doesn't necessarily happen overnight. But it seems like overnight, around the world, things have shifted so greatly. And here comes the threat of the New World Order. Here comes the threat of a very small percentage of people entrenching the mass populaces, right? Entrenching the sheeple and the zombies and the robots, compartmentalizing them and putting them to work for other things, dissociating the souls from the meat suits and using the meat suits to drive some larger agenda. Where do all the souls go? They don't disappear. Energy just doesn't disappear, it's got to go somewhere. That soul energy, all of that, it's going somewhere. And if we dissociate from the collective material, we're going to be seeing a bunch of miserable meat suits marching around. And I don't think that's what humanity has been put here for. I don't think that's why humanity is on Earth. The human meat suits aren't here on Earth to drive some larger agenda for some other entity, some other spirit form, for some egoic control freak. Right? It's not about recognition of one and serving one. It's about the collective and elevating and raising the collective in a mutual co-creative way. And we have very different ideas of what co-creation looks like if you're looking at it through the lens of the masculine or through the lens of the feminine. We have very different approaches in group dynamics and leadership structure. And so, unfortunately, we're witnessing the clash and the divide. And hopefully through that clash and this battle, the battle of the global sexes, right? Round one, race. What's round two gonna be? If we're talking about race and we're too afraid to look at men versus women, well then let's talk about wealth versus poverty, right? How many other ways can we further divide and separate people? How many ways can we further alienate people from the sense of the homo-luminous? With these larger structures that are existent, that are at the threat to crumble, right? These larger systems are maintained and preserved by our consciousness and by our conscious understanding of what life is and should be like. And if we somehow give ourselves permission and allow ourselves to open up to Mother Nature and Earth having a better vision for us than we could ever hold for ourselves, right? Should we submit and surrender ourselves to Mother Nature instead of surrendering ourselves to a white male leader, right? What would that look like? What could that look like? Take the class, How to Be a Human, figure it out, understand yourself from the quantum level, understand yourself from the level of you take responsibility for you, you're responsible for your own healing, you're responsible for your own wellness, right? You lead by example. Our collective plane is crashing. MFers, y'all need to put your air masks on you. Put your own air mask on you, right? There's so much metaphor in there. There's so much metaphor that we can play into. Put your mask on, right? It's COVID. Put your oxygen mask on you. Breathe. Take care of yourself. Heal yourself. You know? Scan your energetic field and scan your energetic body and say hello to every cell in your body as a spiritual entity. You know, reintroduce yourself to your body. Tell your body you will heal it, you know, and take all the steps that you can to make that happen. It's not something that happens overnight. Recovery isn't something that happens overnight, right? Learning isn't something that happens overnight. It's a practice. Meditation doesn't happen overnight. It's a practice. You do it daily. Consciousness, living consciously, is a practice. You come back to it time and time and time and time again. And if collectively we can get into a consciousness practice, we can accelerate this and we can move this a lot quicker. But you got to do it for yourself first. Nobody's going to do it for you. You know, I can't take that class for you. I can't breathe for you. You can't breathe for me. Right? Doesn't necessarily mean you have to be alone. You're responsible for your own healing, right? But we're also a gregarious species and we're dependent on each other and we need each other to survive. So it's okay to reach out. It's okay to ask for help, but understand that when you're reaching out and asking somebody for help, right, at the end of the day, you're the one that has to help you and has to help yourself. So, you know, hard truths, tough love. That's enough of that being thrown at me, but I see it, right? And these energetic boundaries and preserving these energetic boundaries, when we look beyond the veil of the material world and we can begin to relate to our daily lives from this energetic and spiritual space, from this understanding of collective dynamic, right? I think there's so much more that we can accomplish. There's so much more that we can do. We start tying into this realm of morphic resonance again. I bring up morphic resonance often. This is something introduced to me about a year ago. Rupert Sheldrake is the guy who's pretty notorious for coming up with this realm of morphic resonance, right? And it's this idea that two people on opposite sides of the world can have similar ideas or can have similar inventions at the same time, even though they've never talked to each other, right? It's because the information, it's the knowledge, whatever it is that's quote unquote new, right, is sourced from the collective conscious. I mean, it's sourced from a higher realm of ideas and potentialities that we bring down and manifest in this material realm. And again, it depends on where you're sourcing your energy and how you're connecting to the energetic body as a material form. And if you're a material, solid, sapient being, right, trying to understand what it means to be an energetic light body, it can help to understand the body as a series of valves and channels where energy flows through. This is our chakras, our chakra systems, right? And we have this practice, and we have this idea that, you know, we start at the ground and we bring the energy up and we identify the material, and lo and behold, we somehow enter in and connect to the spiritual. As creatives, as creators, artists, some of the best artists and inventors channel in their ideas. You know, it's not something that they've created or sourced out of ego. It's not something inherently created of themselves, right? There's so many stories of people who open up their channels into collective source to bring in knowledge from some higher being or something. It's a knowledge that comes from outside of the self, right? And channeling and sourcing in that knowledge and that energy and creating from that space. That is how we will evolve humanity. We're not going to evolve and get through these problems trying to solve the problems with the solutions that already exist here on this planet. We just don't have the material tools and resources at our feet. Our tools and our resources are energetic, and they're at our crowns. You know, they're at the top of our heads and in the spaces, living up there in the clouds, in the ethers. It's in the energetic matrices. It's in this realm of information and knowledge that is shared between all humans across all time. You know, from the history to the future, and all these parallel dimensions and parallel realities and all the whatever, like the energy of the soul, of the human, of the knowledge that doesn't just disappear. It exists somewhere in some form. That knowledge, consciousness, exists somewhere in some form. We identify it, we can notice it, we can kind of know what to call it, but quantifying it is very challenging, right? We don't necessarily have the tools or perhaps the understanding to really grasp the deep concept of consciousness. We don't know what it is. We don't know where it is. There might be an underlying truth that all of us feel, where inside of us there's a knowing of what consciousness is, but not knowing what to call it. But I'm pretty convinced that that sensation of consciousness is something that is experienced by all things. Even a rock, the consciousness of a rock, or of crystals, the consciousness of water. It looks different, it responds different, right? But there's a holding of energy, a transference of energy and identity that takes place in a physical realm of a thing, right? And this thing is somehow intertwined and interlinked energetically to us all on the quantum level, right? Like there's nothing that separates me from you, even though I have no idea who you are or where you're at in the world or what time of day this is or what day it is. You know, for you, who knows? But we're still connected. You know, I'm still one and connected with the computer that's sitting in front of my face. On this quantum level, when we get down to the quarks, anything is possible. We have all these anti-properties. You know, we don't really know how these things are going to behave. We don't know we know, you know? And there's this knowledge that I know nothing. And in knowing I know nothing, it opens me up into the realm of possibility of anything. And to subscribe to that, I know nothing, it's kind of a dangerous creative place to go down. Because then all of a sudden, when the material things around you begin to lose their sense of form and function, it can be disorienting in a world or in a realm that relies so heavily on form and function to co-create or to be sociable, right? But through the power of language and through the power of connection and through the power of arts and creativity, we can transcend these material planes and we can feel into the ethers and get into different modes of expression and information and how things are passed. It's fascinating. Going through these psychic trainings, going through psychic classes, working with a psychic coach, you know, getting trained in assisting in classes in psychokinesis, right? Stuff just boggles my mind. It just blows my mind. Especially working with alternative healers and these healers who work in these energetic realms to connect to people who channel in guides or channel in knowledge, right? Just this knowing. It's so powerful. It's nice though, because I feel like whatever is happening, it's bringing us back to our more native tradition and our more native root. Though unfortunately, I think for a lot of natives, that cultural divide, that cultural connection has been diluted. So we have to reconnect so many of these pieces, restructure, reform new towers, and rebuild. But like, it's time to rebuild consciously. I think we also have to destroy consciously. Whether we like it or not, our current running president here in America is a catalyst for a revolution. You know, all judgment aside, good, bad, or indifferent, if you look at the 48 laws of power and you look somewhere back at laws 20 something through whatever, something, you know, somewhere in the 20s, it describes Trump's leadership style to the T. And it describes him as a catalyst for revolution. And we've seen his catalyzing agencies create a ripple of revolution around the globe. You know, whether he did something directly or indirectly, he's a catalyst, you know? And so in goes the catalyst into the beaker with the rest of us. Transformation's happening. Revolution is happening. A shift is happening. There's no stopping it. It's already been set into motion, right? The chemical reaction is already in action. There's already reaction. There's already movement and momentum. And at this point, there's no stopping it. We submit to the fact that change is happening. We submit to the fact that transformation is occurring. This is where consciousness comes into play. Consciousness, free will, choice, right? Because we can choose to surrender and tap out spiritually and surrender the body, surrender the will. But it's not that kind of a surrender, right? It's more like a leaning into a radical acceptance. Well, this change is happening. Things are never going to be the same. It's never going to be like it was. That something old is being dissolved and destroyed so that something new can come in and be created. And that this process of transformation is natural. It's organic. It's supposed to happen. Things aren't meant to stay the same forever. That's how stagnation occurs. You can't stick to the same schedule and the same routine and the same thing day in and day out and day in and day out and expect any change to happen. Right? A lot of people don't want change to happen because they're so attached to the material. They're so attached to certain ideas and concepts of how things should be. And if you're attached to how things are and you strongly identify with it, you're going to feel a struggle and you're going to feel pain and you're going to feel resistance to the revolution, right? And it's going to make it so much harder. And I think these are the people who end up ill with like strange health problems, or just people who end up killing themselves, people who end up dead. That's no way to go. Let's just not. It's a short-term solution to a long-term problem. And depending on what spiritual practice you subscribe to, by taking some sort of action like that, though you might end the life of the body, the spirit doesn't die. The spirit's going to come back in. The karmic energy is going to continue to play out, and you'll have lessons again to experience in the next lifetime. And if you can open yourself up to healing your ancestral trauma in this lifetime, and you can open yourself up to clearing out the codes and the contracts for your soul is a future, or the future of your soul, I think we can get more work done that way. We can move further that way. But if you're stuck to these old ideas and you're fighting to keep things how they are, you won't adapt. And if you're not adapting and if you're not being flexible, right, then you snap and then you break down or you break apart or fall apart. And good, bad, or indifferent, no judgment aside, some people some people have to. Some people have to lose everything to really get it, right? They have to be forced to start over. And I, throughout my life, have met a few contingencies. I don't know, I've had to start over in my life 3, 4, 5 times now. I'm not even 35 yet. And on one hand, I think people could be like, oh, you just can't get your shit together, you're a failure, this and that. And then on another hand, it's accelerating the growth potential. It's doing all the work, it's moving through all those energies, and it's doing the radical energy shifting, right? To clear out what's not meant for me, to clear out what's not in the highest good, to open up the realm of experience for something beyond the material form. And so at this point in my life, what a blessing. So hard. And though, I just look back at myself through these different phases through my 20s, and just being in these dark, deep pits of desperation, or just feeling like it's never gonna end, right? Just being in these horrible, awful emotional places, just felt so low and helpless, right? And so alone. But you find that as you push through and you lean into that darkness, when you pop out on the other side, things are so much more beautiful. Things are so much more fulfilling, right? You can release those attachments, and you can radically accept the traumas and the bad things that have happened in life as lessons to carry on and pass forward to others. It's a beautiful space to be in. It's an empowering space to be in, to know that so long as I have me, I'm home, right? My meat suit is my number one home. I have to live in this body for the rest of my life. So I might as well take care of it. I might as well treat it like a temple, like it is a temple, honor it like the temple it is, because this is the temporary house that my soul gets to survive in during this lifetime. And it's taken me a long time to learn that level of self-love and self-respect. Maybe this is something women are taught. I'm not a man, so I can't speak to it so much. But there's just a devaluing of self, right? And having to always put other people first. And it's such a female dynamic to, put the man in her life first, put the children first, but everybody else first. And I see it in some men too. There's just this need to want to give and support and take care of others, right? Because it makes you feel better. And there's this overarching theme that when we give to ourselves, or when we do something for ourselves, or when we take care of ourselves, right, there's something selfish about that. So we have this rhetoric in our language that already sets us up for failure when it comes to transforming. It just sets us up for confusion. There's this rhetoric that is designed to lock us into this matrix, into this way of thinking, and if we can't break out of that programming through the neuro-linguistics, and then it's basically set in the stone of our brains, or it's just set in neural pathways. But the brain is malleable, the brain is adaptable. These pathways can change. You don't always have to take the same road. You can carve a new path. You can walk your own trail. You can set off and go in a different direction and explore uncharted territories. Why not? Why not? Right? Oh, because the system says you can't. Because the system tells you you've got to sit down and shut up and be pretty and fit inside of this box and, like, do things a certain way. So when you start stepping out on your own, doing something for your own, diving into the self-care, doing something radical in terms of this homo-luminous ideology where you're focused on healing yourself instead of putting your focus on healing others, right? Well, if you heal yourself, ultimately you heal others. But what happens is if you spend so much of your time healing others and you don't heal yourselves, then you break down. Then what good does that do, right? Again, humanity, the plane is crashing. Air masks have dropped down, you know? You gotta put that air mask on you first. You gotta make sure that your emotional cup overfloweth before you go out giving to anybody else. You know, if we're giving in a space of lack, or if we're giving in a space of expecting some sort of return or any, like, exchange, we're just going to continue to perpetuate all of these cycles. We're just going to continue to perpetuate tearing each other down, right, in order to get ahead, instead of lifting each other up, right? It just makes me think of the differences in the group dynamics of men and women. Like, when men come together in groups, it's like dogs, right? Like, they're looking for the leader of the pack. They're looking for somebody to follow, right? Women are different. Women have more of a shared sense of power and have more of a sense of bringing everybody up onto equal terms and then making decisions for the whole, or like making decisions as a group. So it's difficult, I think, in these feminine dynamics to pinpoint who the leader is. But what I think is so great about leadership and group dynamics, and one of my favorite, like, go-tos when it comes to leadership, right? I tell this to my son all the time. He's a toddler. I tell him this all the time because he's so determined and so bossy. He's a Capricorn. That a great leader or a good leader, right, knows how to be a great follower, right? And I think to be a follower, you also need to know and empathize with what it's like to be a leader. And to know that depending on the context, right, depending on the situation, everybody is in a position where they might have to take the role of the leader. And so you would think that if you have each of the persons within your group trained to be a leader and a follower, trained with all of the skills, you increase the survivability of the species. I had alluded to something like this last week in regards to a man commenting on a social media post in regards to, like, you know, why doesn't a woman need to know how to chop wood? Like, that's a man's job, kind of a thing. And I think I brought this up last week too, where if a woman doesn't know how to chop wood, right, and always relies on the man to chop wood, what happens when the man goes hunting and is gone for extended periods of time? What happens when the man goes to war and is gone for extended periods of time? What happens when the man gets sick? What happens when the man has his arms chopped off and can no longer swing an axe? Right? Somebody's got to chop the wood. Somebody's got to start the fire. And if the woman doesn't know how to chop the wood, everybody dies. But when it comes to the role reversal, the same holds true as well. You know, like, if a man doesn't know how to be nurturing or doesn't know how to sew, right? Sewing is something we put on women often. Or if a man doesn't know how to cook, right? I hunt, you cook. Well, what happens if the woman dies in childbirth, right? What happens if the woman is ill? What happens if she just up and disappears, right? What happens if she is kidnapped by the neighbor and raped and impregnated by somebody else or something? I don't know. Like, well, the man better know how to cook food, right? Or everybody dies. So when we attribute survival roles to one sex or the other, we do a disservice to the whole species, right? It's important to be well-rounded. It's important to know how to play masculine roles when the timing is appropriate and the context is right. It's important to know how to play feminine roles when the timing is appropriate and the context is right. Knowing how to discern the difference between the two, or knowing how to incorporate both at once, keeping both in consideration, right? To find a third alternative, to find the truth between the two instead of the truth of one or the other. I feel like it's a very short step forward for humanity, but the effort that it takes to lift up that heavy foot and to pull it and carry it forward, it's no easy feat, right? Do you like the pun there? Do you like the humor? It's there, it's subtle. I'm laughing. I'm at about, just under 10 more minutes with you. So we can start wrapping up this session, closing this session off, closing down this channel. I miss the chat room. Although there's less distractions for me, I just leave the channel open and I start rambling and ranting, and then here we go. Chat room's nice to have the feedback in the interactions, but I suppose when the timing's right for it, it'll be right. I'm gonna pull one of these oracle cards that I have out, and we'll set the tone, I guess, for the rest of the day, for the following week. Right, we'll kind of get a feel for the collective energy that's here and what it is that we're supposed to get from all of this as we move forward into our next phase. Because next week we'll be going through Women's Energy 3. We'll see kind of what growth and stuff happens there. I'm just very open at this point to seeing where the show goes in the next couple of months, as I have a couple of big initiatives, I guess, that I'm trying to land and tie together. And if you want to somehow support me in all of that, want to know what all of it is, I'm trying to put together a healing arts research and retreat center, space, something or other. But yeah, funding to help keep the research going. Trying to figure out how to get myself back through school and all that kind of fun stuff. But thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up, and thank you for supporting, and thank you for the feedback. I feel like I've gotten some feedback since last week too that I haven't responded to yet, so I've got to go back through and catch up with everything there. But I'm definitely very self-focused, more so now than kind of in general. If you're into the Enneagram at all, I'm a 4. So I'm very much about independence and working on self, and I don't know, I'm my own greatest art piece, for whatever that's worth. Okay, so as far as the cards go, I have a Messenger Oracle decked by Raven Fillon Lawn. And I've pulled from this before. It's got an owl on the front. It's one of my newer decks. But the owl that's on the front of the card, or on the front of the box, is the owl on the card that I pulled up. And it's See the Truth. So I'll read through that. I'm probably going to pick another one too. Because now I'm like, well, what's the truth? What is it that, there's always more. I always have more questions. This is card 39. So 39, if you're into numerology, reduces down to a 3. So again, mind, body, spirit, balance, the truth in the matter, right? Do not be deceived. Be watchful and mindful of the illusions others weave around themselves, and that you may weave around yourself. Know the night. Understand the shadows. See through the darkness to the light of the truth. Pay attention to contradictions. Notice when action and words are not in harmony. Hone your intuition and insight so that you may know the minds and hearts of those around you and yourself, and trust in the wisdom born of that awareness. Right? Doing the work, leaning into the shadow, seeing through the veil. And we are at a collective time where the veil of illusion in front of us is so thick. So thick, so much so on a political level that that veil is veiled on the individual. So it's like veil over veil over veil, right? There's a lot to look through, a lot to piece in. And if you're dissociated and detached from your body as an energetic being, it can be difficult to intuit and to discern, right? But if you lean into the darkness, if you lean into the shadows, if you acknowledge the faults and find your way out, right, without judgment, it's radical acceptance, breakthrough. Right? That's what we're looking for. We're looking for a breakthrough. Not a breakdown, not a break around, not just a break, although those are helpful at times, but a breakthrough. You gotta go through it. Like the global revolution that we're feeling, the next couple of years are gonna be tough. It's gonna be hard. As the old system crumbles to make way for a new system to be rebuilt, it's going to take time, and it's going to be difficult, and it's got to be pushed through. We just have to get through it. And we've done it before. We've survived so much before. Right? And the next card that comes up, be without malice. I'm not going to read into that because we have a minute here left. We got Mitchell coming up next with Revolution in the Morning. I'm stoked about it. I'm looking forward to my good morning yeehaw to keep me going. Right? It's Revolution in the Morning. There's so much to take in. You want truth? We've got truth here. You want to look under the veil? You've got it here at Revolution Radio. freedomslips.com, revolution.radio. You can find more truth, and you can find me at kelseysweet.com. I'm out there on the social medias. There's ways to find me. Contact me. Connect with me. Let's find ways to break through these creative blocks and channels together. It'll be great. It'll be fun. And then, with your extra cash, you can, throw a little bit my way. You can sponsor this radio show. You can sponsor the whole radio station if you like. We won't tell you no. I don't know. Somebody might tell you no. But when it comes to money, it's not too often. Somebody's like, no, I don't need extra resources. Right? There's an abundance out there. Grab onto it. Right? Grab life by the light bulbs. Screw in your light bulbs. Illuminate your life. Be conscious. Wake up. People. Right? Wakey, wakey. Eggs and bakey. Wakey, wakey. Revolution in the morning. Up next, Mitchell. I'll see y'all next week here on Revolution Radio and Cultivating Consciousness. Hashtag Cultivating Consciousness. Here at the Freak Parlor, Parliament, with your freaky sweet. Hey, that's me. See you next week. Peace.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.